Welcome back, folks. Well, another significant move by the Dodgers. Another day, another great move. Dodgers today, ink Tanner Scott, probably one of the most elite relievers in the last couple of years. Tanner Scott, that fireballing lefty, he has been one of the most dominant closers slash relievers in the last couple of years, and he is joining those big bad Dodgers. Oh boy, we got a lot to talk about in today's show. Today, we're going to talk about our New York Mets possibly going down the path of pursuing Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar. That's an interesting one right there. We also have to talk again. Let's mention the Alonso update. Are he and Alonso defeated? Are a Mets reunion likely? And at the end of the day, let's figure this out. Are the Dodgers killing baseball? Because in the last couple days, in fact, you know what? Let's fast forward this back to the last 2 years. The Dodgers spending an unprecedented almost $1.5 billion in the last 2 years, accumulating free agents, bringing in players. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, what type of effect will that have on all of baseball? All right, now let me just start off by thanking you. Thank you for returning. I'm going to ask you for a favor. If you are new and you are not yet a member, please consider joining the channel. If you watched the channel before, please subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. We have grown in a tremendous way. One day I will go over those numbers with you. But yes, we have been growing, and please continue to grow with us. And also consider becoming a channel member. What that does is it helps support the channel, and that also helps us grow in a tremendous way. Stony, thank you. You are our latest member to join. I believe you joined 2 days ago. So thank you so much for that recent member purchase. Okay. You also have the ability to follow at Dominant Mets on X. That's also another way for you to follow the channel. All right, so let's get going with today's show. And today's show is a doozy. It is a doozy because we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions. And it really talks about, when you talk about the Dodgers, that's like talking about the Mets. Because if you're a Mets fan, your ultimate goal, without a doubt, is to win a World Series. When you go out and you spend $765 million on a Mr. Juan Soto, come on, folks. You have went all in for a World Series. Now, what has transpired after the Mets signed Juan Soto? Well, you bring back Sean Manaea and you make a couple decent moves. Nothing great. Sean Manaea, I would have to say, Sean Manaea and AJ Minter, and that was a very decent reliever pickup. Very decent pickup. Are those top level moves? No, but are those nice winning moves? Yes, they are nice winning moves. But you know what? I can't help but think most of us Mets fans wanted more. In fact, let me rewind the clock to 3 weeks ago when most of us 3 weeks ago we were asking for those two bats. And in fact, maybe even 4 weeks ago, all right, about that 3-4 week period, we were hearing news in the paper that the Mets are interested in both Bregman and Pete Alonso. That the Mets wanted two big bats, and then we were contemplating. You know what? What about Alonso Guerrero, Bregman Guerrero? So we thought, you know what, that made a lot of sense because the Mets wanted to beef up their lineup so that they can compete with the ultra pitching of the Dodgers. Fast forward, the Dodgers have added elite weapons in Tanner Scott and Roki Sasaki, and then you fast forward those 3 weeks and those two elite batters. I can't say we've added those. We've added Jesse Winker. And then the second bat, we are talking about Jurickson Profar. And we're going to get to Jurickson Profar in a minute, but Jurickson Profar isn't on that level of a Bregman Alonso. Now, there'll be stipulations to, okay, Profar looks nicer if you get another piece. But frankly, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about those two big bats and Winker Profar. That that was not what I was looking for. And, we're going to go over why that, has its pros, has its cons, just like every other move. Now, okay, so let's start off, with the Dodgers signing Tanner Scott. And all right, you could say good for the Dodgers. The Dodgers have been ultra aggressive, signing Tanner Scott to a 4-year deal worth $72 million. And he was without a doubt the best reliever on the market. Now, that doesn't mean he will be the best reliever for 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028 for the duration of his contract. It just means that he was coming into this offseason, had the best numbers. Now, AJ Minter, he has been an ultra impressive option in his own right. And if you look at the financial, finances that you had to give Tanner Scott, well more than the finances that you had to give Minter. So you had to give Minter you have to give Minter that $22 million contract. Of that 22 million, 11 million you're guaranteed to pay. So let's look at that 11 million in perspective with 72 million. The risk was just far greater with Tanner Scott. Yes, the reward was far greater as well with Tanner Scott, but the Dodgers are putting together probably one of, I gotta say, this is the most elite team in my lifetime. I'm 37 years old, and in my lifetime, this is the most elite team that I can remember. Obviously, I go back to the dynasty Yankees in the late 90s, but those Yankees, the 98 team, everything just seemed to go right for them. But as far as the star power, there's nothing that can compete with Otani, Betts, Freeman, Sasaki, Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glass. Now you even could have a Clayton Kershaw. The list goes on and on and on. If you look at their lineup, if you look at their rotation, if you look at their bullpen, and even their bullpen is enhanced by how good their starting rotation is. So it's just very tough to kind of, put the Mets in comparison with the Dodgers, right? In terms of the offseason. So they've won the offseason last year. That's translated into a World Series. But I'm going to keep repeating this. History has shown many times that it doesn't really always prove true that teams that win the offseason win the World Series. The Mets last year, their offseason, you could say, was extremely underwhelming. And in terms of ranking, they finished in third place, in my opinion. The two teams that went to the World Series, the Dodgers and the Yankees. Dodgers were the best team, Yankees the second best team. And, I would say that the Mets had a little better showing in the NLCS. But in terms of 2024, the Mets finished as the third best team overall. They went the third furthest in that ring. But you know what? You wouldn't say that if you looked at their offseason. Severino, Manaea, those guys weren't upper echelon pitchers. So it's not always about having the best offseason. So if you're a Mets fan and you're kind of, very worried, and you're looking over across the country and you're seeing everybody and their mother going to LA, and you're saying season over, oh my God, let's pump the brakes. Yes, the Tanner Scott move, best reliever in the last 2 years, that's nice. But sometimes guys who throw 100 miles per hour and they're a lefty, and they've gotten a lot better in the last 2 years. He's changed his mechanics, tweaked his pitchers, and yes, he's had those tremendous results. But that is not always going to translate, folks. And I'm not trying to poo-poo their moves. I'm not trying to throw cold water. But what I'm just trying to say is history has seen circumstances where teams have invested greatly and thrown money. Blake Snell, he's a guy who has thrown over 130 innings 2 times in his 9-year career. If he gets injured for a large part of this season or in the playoffs when it matters, would that surprise me? No, Sasaki, he's had his injuries, but he's a young guy who has to, basically get used to the MLB. If he struggles off the bat, would that surprise me? No. Otani's a freaking unicorn. If something happens with Otani in terms of pitching or not coming back and, not looking right, would that surprise me? No. So the Dodgers have went all in, invested all their money, all their resources, $1.5 billion in the last 2 years. You know, that makes them have to invest more and more and more to make everything worth it. And the time frame for them is simple. They have built this team around Otani because in 10 freaking years, the bill will come due and basically it will be hell on earth for the Dodgers. That is not yet. So this is why they have to go times 10 right now. And, also too, why are they going so pedal to the metal? Is it because they see the Dodgers are a smart organization? Do they see a great owner in the New York Mets, a great, a baseball man president in David Stern, a smart guy, not giving $200 million to a Pete Alonso, not having all these, long-term contracts that could weigh us down, properly investing in guys like Juan Soto. And you know what? Let me tell you something about the Juan Soto contract. Juan Soto, I've been hearing about Mets fans say, oh, Juan Soto, you give him $800 million and do nothing. You needed to overpay for Juan Soto, especially for what you see going on across the country. I mean, those superstars, everybody's following the trend. It's the LeBron James effect in LA. Everybody wants, they know the Dodgers, if you want to win, who stands the best chance? And it's not like, oh, their odds are plus 300 and the next odds are plus 400. The Dodgers are right now so much heads and shoulders favorites, right? Doesn't always translate, but they are so much heads and shoulders favorites. That's causing everybody to, if they want to win, we have to go to the Dodgers. Sasaki, if he chose Toronto, that would have been like, okay, if I win one championship, that would be a miracle, a miracle. Now, if I go to the Dodgers, I have a chance to win 4 or 5 championships. So, again, they are just building something that could be construed as, as a dynasty, they would be the first team if they win this year to win a back-to-back championship in the last 25 years. So, they're looking to do something special. But again, the Mets have to stay on course. And right now, that has led them to be interested in a guy like Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar has been he was a former top prospect. I remember when he was with the Rangers, he was a shortstop. And I remember, he was very, very, very highly touted back in, in the day. But, he was very inconsistent. And his career wasn't the career that probably scouts predicted. But, last year, he had an extremely, extremely solid year. So if you're looking at what does he bring to the table and what has he done lately, he has performed at a very high level in the last year. With playing with the Padres, he was an all-star, 24 home runs, 85 RBIs, batted 280, very respectable. And this is what I like. He had an on-base of 380, 459 slug, 840 OPS. And he had his best year of his career. And if you go back to 2018, 2019, he had some good years back then. But from 2020 to 2023, very, very mediocre. Very mediocre. He's a guy that you could probably expect about 15 home runs, 60 to 70 RBI, right? His career batting average is 245. His career on base is 331. His OPS is 726. So even though last year looks like an outlier, maybe something figured out, but he's going to be 32. And usually a lot of these players resort more to the mean. So am I looking at a guy who can hit 24 home runs, 85 RBIs, 280, 400 on base, 840 slug? I don't think so. And honestly, if that was the case and that was more typical of what MLB and scouts projected him to be, he would probably be off the market, off the market. So, him having that one good year at age 31, it looks like more of an outlier. So again, I foresee him resorting back to the mean. The mean would be about a 250 batting average, 15 home runs, about 60 RBIs. How is that? How does that play? How does that play in the outfield, especially when you have Taylor, Siri, Winker, McNeil, Marte, Nimmo, and Soto? I mean, there's a lot there, folks. There's a lot there, and there are a lot of players who are at similar levels. Similar levels. How much really does adding a Jurickson Profar help the team? I was saying Jurickson Profar was a decent option. But that was if you were going to add like a Bregman or add a Guerrero or add an Alonso, right? I mean, if we get a Profar and then add an Alonso, that's a different story, right? That is a different story. But if Winker and Profar are our two extra bats, I can understand how New York Mets fans are going to feel extremely underwhelmed. And then when you look across the country, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. Folks, if you haven't got a chance to like the channel or subscribe and you like what you hear and you're a passionate fan, this sounds like your channel. Hit the like button, subscribe. It tremendously helps the channel, and then you get more videos. So it helps us all out. Okay, so I can understand where most of us are coming from. There's a certain contingent of Met fans that no matter what the Mets do, no matter if the Wilpons own the team, if Stevie Cohen owns the team, every move is oh my God, what a great move. Jurickson Profar, 24 home runs, 82 RBIs, 280 batting. What a great move. No, that's an outlier. It's an outlier. He's a nice player. He's a nice player, and but if you look at the outfield, let's look at the outfield, right? Let's look at the outfield because most likely he'd probably play outfield and probably a little DH. And Winker's supposed to play DH. You still Marte's at the team, so it's okay. Let's look at the move. Probably another move would have to happen. We'd probably have to trade away a Marte or a McNeil. But let's look at the outfield. So you have Soto, hands down about it. He's going to be an everyday outfielder. All right, let's pencil him in. Nimmo would be our second, right behind Soto in terms of talent. Nimmo, he's an everyday outfielder if he's healthy. But he's got the plantar fasciitis in his foot. So, would you be surprised if he plays 100 games and misses? That would mean he would miss over 60 games. No, it wouldn't surprise me. He's injured. And he's coming back from an injury. So, he has to see how the surgery and how everything kind of feels. All right. So you have a guy who's dealing with kind of an injury and recovering in Nimmo, and he's older. So you have just one really guaranteed guy who you can pencil in. He's going to be healthy. That's Soto. All right. Nimmo would be a second most talented guy, but he's got injuries. Now, in terms of the next talented guys, you have a pool of very similar players. You have Tyrone Taylor, you have Jose Siri, you have Jesse Winker, you have McNeil, and you have Marte, right? Now, if Marte was a little younger, he'd probably be in there if he was younger and he was healthy, but he's older and he hasn't been healthy. So, and he makes $20 million, so the Mets are trying to get rid of him. So, he wouldn't be the third best guy. Now you have Taylor and you have Siri. Well, based on the fact that, you got Jose Siri, $2 million. He's an elite, probably a better defensive player than Taylor. So he would probably be a third best talented guy. He's got good potential pop. Hopefully the Mets can kind of work on his hit tool a little better, make a little more contact. Then he could be a surprise. He's a guy that I said, I think there's more there than meets the eye. He plays with passion, he plays with fire. You got him and Jesse Winker that do that. And it's all about defense. So if you're gonna have a Soto who has, probably you're saying is not the best outfielder, and Nimmo who has, that bum foot, then you're gonna need a guy like Jose Siri to be that elite weapon in center field. And then you got Tyrone Taylor probably playing, when Siri doesn't play. And then you got Winker, and then you got the McNeil Marte. And then now, you have about the six guys right there, five or six guys in the outfield mix. And now you're telling me you want to add a Jurickson Profar, not a guy who's a notorious 24, 80 something home run guy, a guy who is career average 245 hitter, probably will pop you between 10 and 15 more realistically going to age 32. And these numbers don't blow you away. In fact, you can argue if you play Tyron Taylor full time, he'll have better numbers. Jose Siri would have better numbers. Jeff McNeil, not in the power department. Marte. So you're not bringing in a superior option with Jurickson Profar. Then you have to ask yourself, are you basically saying we're talking with Jurickson Profar to gain leverage again in the Pete Alonso Boris saga? Because that saga is ridiculous. And I got to say, on this channel, we were at the forefront of asking all these questions about Alonso. I mean, does Alonso want to return? I mean, we were asking these questions a month ago. We predicted that the longer this goes, the more and more Pete Alonso wouldn't look good. And now you have, and I think we were proven right, because now you have so many die-hard, loyal Pete Alonso outlets and people that have supported Pete Alonso, them getting frustrated, them questioning Pete Alonso's, kind of loyalty and ability and want to come back to the New York Mets. So that's a factor. By Pete Alonso dragging this out, he was never going to look good. Now, there's so much going on in the last couple of days. Thursday or Wednesday, Thursday, it was over. Plan B, according to Andy Martino. The Mets have pivoted officially on Plan B. And I said, opening of that show, I said, oh boy, have we given a lot of power to these MLB insiders. Like, okay, they say that the Mets are pivoting, and that's all of a sudden the official word. Okay, I mean, it looked like that was the strategy at the time. And then you hear the Blue Jays, now they're interested in Alonso. They're hot and heavy. They're interested in Sasaki, bringing Guerrero back, bringing in Bregman. I mean, last week, the Blue Jays were that it team just for a couple minutes. Nobody officially kind of really signed of a high level, but the Blue Jays had, okay, if Sasaki comes and Alonso comes and Guerrero comes and maybe maybe we can actually have a really great team, and the fans will be excited. But I think that kind of carried away the Blue Jays. I really do. I think that the Blue Jays really got caught up and potentially bringing in Sasaki, Guerrero and Alonso. I think the Blue Jays had a couple days to evaluate if the Pete Alonso situation was really viable, and if that was the best way for them. And then probably sitting at a table with all their executives going around, hey, Bob, do you think the Blue Jays should go after Pete? Jack, what about, you think the Blue Jays' best move is Pete? And everybody going around saying, oh, the Mets, they're maxed out at this amount, and he's been with the Mets, and another guy goes, well, pairing him with Guerrero and this and that. Another guy goes, well, Guerrero plays first base. There were so many issues and so many what ifs. I think that the money wasn't going to be significantly greater. And if the money would be significantly greater, that would cause more and more risk to the Toronto Blue Jays. So then at the end of the day, the Blue Jays were really evaluating, are they really interested in the polar bear, especially for the asking price? And then, I put out, video saying, I had my doubts. Because, and it still may happen, but my thing was, I was questioning the Alonso Guerrero fit. I said, okay, it makes sense if Alonso's going to go there to be a Guerrero replacement, right? And then they're saying they're interested in Guerrero just so they could still have leverage to sign Pete Alonso, because obviously if they say they're trading Guerrero, now Boris was like, you need us. So we're going to pretend to be interested. So that's what I was posting. And then everybody was like, oh, educate yourself. Guerrero's going to play third. Alonso's going to play first. Everybody's going to be happy. And I'm like, well, why is Guerrero going to play third? Well, that's going to build his value and he wants to go there. So you're telling me that the Blue Jays do not want to pay his asking price at first base, but he's going to go to third base and then his value is going to go up and then he's going to want even more money. And then the Blue Jays are going to be happy giving him that. That doesn't make sense. And then moving him to third base and having Pete Alonso at first. I mean, Guerrero is not the most fleet of foot. He's not. It's not like he's a well-conditioned athlete. He's a Gold Glove. I know he won a Gold Glove, but he's not the best fielder. There was a reason why. I know they had a logjam, but it's not like he stood out as a best option third baseman when he was even younger. It just didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense, especially the ones who told me they're going to put him there because Guerrero wants to raise his value so that he can go elsewhere next year and sign with another team other than the Blue Jays. That makes sense. No, this is all just, I think the Blue Jays were caught up. The Blue Jays were caught up. And I think this whole situation, the longer this goes, I think this all revolves around Guerrero, folks. All revolves around Guerrero. When Boris and Pete Alonso said, we're going to wait until March. They had a couple teams in mind. They had the Giants. They had the Blue Jays as potential competitors to the New York Mets. But they wouldn't be competitors. A team like the Blue Jays would not be competitors with the Mets for Alonso unless, they failed on their contract extension with Guerrero. And, why March? Well, because Guerrero said, you sign me, you have a chance to sign me up until spring training. So Boris heard that. Toronto Blue Jays are trying to extend Guerrero. If they don't extend Guerrero by March, then now they're going to need a long-term first base option. So I still don't see it. I could see one day the Mets already inquired on Guerrero. They already said, hey, what's going to be the asking price? And at that time, a couple of days ago on Tuesday, so that was about 5 days ago, the Blue Jays says, no, we're not open for business. We are still interested in signing Guerrero. And they should be. That is their homegrown superstar. They should be. But the fact of the matter is nobody wants to come to Toronto. So if Guerrero signs, where the hell is the team around him? Everybody has left. I mean, the last couple of years, Toronto went from being a very viable place to win to, just Guerrero, and it's just really not there. Bichette, who knows what's going on with him, and that stability word, and I always say that players want stability. They want stability. Now, you got to say, whether you like what David Stearns is doing or not, he is building stability with the New York Mets. You have your longtime superstar here for the next 15 years. Obviously, your shortstop is going to be here for the next 6-7 years. Vientos, he's a young guy we brought up. I mean, if he continues to ascend, he's going to be here. You have your catcher in Alvarez. He's going to be here. Nimmo is going to be here. Now your rotation, you have a little more stability in the rotation with Manaea with that 3-year contract. Senga looks to be here for another 3 years as well. Now, your relievers, you've got for the next couple of years. So the Mets are building something special. And I think the reason why, they are beating Alonso and beating Boris every day, not only because there's no market, not only because there's no teams interested in Alonso at the moment, but because of the fact that they are so damn confident in their system and in their players. They are confident that they can produce another Mark Vientos. They are confident that Mark Vientos will get better, that Alvarez will get better. They are very confident in their team and their system. So, at the end of the day, they will always have leverage. Boris screwed Alonso in so many different ways. Literally, the reason why I have confidence that Alonso has a chance to reunite with the Mets is Boris has done such a good job chasing all of Alonso's suitors away. So, the Blue Jays were the newest suitor, newest team sniffing around. Well, you just bring in Mr. Scott Boris to scare that team away. I mean, again, Boris has scared every team away. Like, I'll give you a good example. The house that I bought, I love the house. I love the house. And when I bought it about a year and a half ago, there were no clients that saw this house. No clients that saw this house. And then when I met the seller's agent, that seller's agent wouldn't answer my calls, wouldn't answer my real estate agent's call. Basically, she appeared to not really show the house. So it really kind of benefited me. I think I benefited because she wasn't, that top echelon real estate agent. And she didn't do a great job in my particular case. Now, Scott Boras, yes, he's got that great reputation, but do you think that he has the same success for every single situation? If he, let's say he tripled the expectation of Soto and Nat Soto, and that was great, that Soto contract. He hasn't done nearly as good of a job. In fact, as good of a job that he did in the Soto contract negotiation is as bad of a job that he's done to Pete Alonso. So it's just tough. And honestly, I'm thinking that a Mets reunion is likely. And I forgot who exactly had it, but one article I was reading, they were saying that the Mets want a decision tomorrow. And I know I've burnt myself with saying things like this in the past because, and again, sources get things wrong over and over. I think sources, MLB insiders, know less and less. I think making an educated guess is what a lot of these MLB sources do these days. I really do. So that's that. Now, Dodgers. Are they killing baseball? And now somebody wrote me a good email saying that the Dodgers are killing baseball for several reasons. One of the reasons is they almost have a $400 million payroll. Their deferrals are close to almost $500 million. This cannot persist. This cannot persist because you want a fair playing field. And when one team finds a way to skirt the system and get this type of advantage and go right up here and all the other teams are still down here, Major League Baseball, when they go to collect the collective bargaining, they find a way to close those loopholes and even things out. Maybe the 100% penalty isn't enough for these teams that don't care if they lose money. And that's another thing. The Mets, you have to understand with the teams like the Mets have lost money the last couple of years, hundreds of millions of dollars. And if I tell you this, the attendance last year in a year that they almost went to the World Series, the attendance went down from 2023. You know that? Listen to that. The Mets, it always, winning. If you win, the fans will come out. They will pay money. Last year, 2024, when the team was 2 games shy of going to the World Series, so they had a fairly good season, almost won 90 games, compared to that dreadful 2023, they had a higher attendance in 2023. Right. And, you could say, well, the Mets in 2023 invested money, Verlander, Scherzer, they had more star power. And there's something to it. There's certainly something to that. In 2024, they cut back on those high expenditures. They still had a high payroll, but, they didn't go after those superstar contracts. They tried to cut back a lot of that excess spending. So that could be it too. But I just think at the end of the day, the Dodgers have went all in, all the poker chips to the table, and they're like, you know what? We're not just going to be this much better than the next team. We just won the World Series. We were already better than everybody else, but now we're going to get a Blake Snell. We're going to get a Sasaki. We're going to make sure we have the best closer on the market. They just want to make sure that they are that much heads and shoulders because they know at the end of the day, there is no excuse for the Dodgers. There is no excuse. If a Blake Snell gets injured or Tani gets injured, they're going to need like 3 or 4 other legit options because Nobody's going to help out the Dodgers. They're going to be like the evil empire. At the deadline, who's going to want to help out the Dodgers? The asking price for them is going to be through the roof, and rightfully so. And then also they're going to be have a lot of tax penalties and a lot of these other penalties the Dodgers will have to deal with as well. But at the end of the day, I won't say that they're killing baseball, but I will say that with their actions have consequences. And what they will do is end up changing baseball. And those changes, will that be looked at or viewed upon as killing baseball? So I would have to say it's a wait and see approach. We have to see what those changes will be. But even if we don't look at those changes, we don't look to the future. Now, are you one to think if there's one team that is so dominant, LeBron James, when LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, when those three united, was that killing the NBA? Well, they were together for 4 years, won 2 championships, and then, 2 other years, other teams won, and then that team broke up. So I don't think that this is going to kill Major League Baseball. I don't think they're going to win every year. And I don't think this is going to last as long as we think it's going to last. It's not sustainable to invest this much money, forever. I mean, Tani, he's going to get older. Mookie Betts is going to get older. Freeman's going to get older. The Dodgers have shown themselves to replenish that talent and be very good at it. And they do have youngsters in Yamamoto, Sasaki as well. But Snell's older. I'm not 100% on this. I'm not 100% on this. And I kind of see why the Dodgers really, I look at these moves sometimes as panic moves. When you throw so much money, 4-year contracts, 5-year contracts, deferring, all this money, the Dodgers know they have to really back themselves up to protect every single, disaster scenario. So, it is what it is. And I'm not going to really get on Stearns like some other people are right now because, I'm just going to evaluate this realistically. First year, Stearns, 2 games short of the World Series. And, you could be saying, well, there was a lot of luck involved. Lindor hit that home run to even make the playoffs. There was a possibility the Mets don't make the playoffs. Then Pete Alonso had to hit that home run to advance to the playoffs. But at the end of the day, good teams put themselves in position to win. And in all these instances, the Mets had put themselves in a position to win. If you look at the Mets ERA, the starting pitching for the last 2 months, we were like top 3 in ERA, top 5 in ERA for down the stretch. That's because of Stearns. That's because of his system, his pitching lab. That's because of Stearns. So, you don't even put yourself in a position to go into the wild card unless Stearns puts all those moves together. And then plus we were playing with a lot of dead money on the payroll. Everybody forgets that our team in the NLCS championship, that was $180 million roster. Meanwhile, we're playing up against the Dodgers who have a roster of $320 million on the field playing. So just in terms of who was playing, who was not, a lot of dead money really skewed things. It looked like we were utilizing a payroll of over 300 million, but we really weren't. So, based upon all those, really hardships Stearns had to deal with in year one, now he's able to clean out all that dead money. Now he's able to utilize that money in the bullpen and pieces that fit that he sees that fit. So I'm interested to seeing that. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. If the Dodgers are getting everybody, that the Mets can win another way. There are more than one way to win. And, I'm just going to say it like that. The Dodgers are great. I give them all the credit in the world. There's a lot of excitement generated. Tickets are being bought. We saw the same thing when we signed Juan Soto. But, the Mets have shown that propensity to want to get better, to be opportunistic. Didn't you like the fact 5 days ago, they went out and they called Toronto. They wanted to add a Vladdy Guerrero to this lineup, right? So they are always out working the phones, always out trying to upgrade this roster and upgrade this team. That's what I want to see, and that's what we're going to continue to see. Are the Mets sitting down on their hands? No, they're never going to be sitting down on their hands. They're not going to be like Billy Epler. They're not going to be like the Wilpons. It's not these 1 or 2 additions and see how everybody plays out. If the team doesn't work out or is not going in the direction, trust me, mark my word, moves will be made. And players knowing that, that moves will be made and that positions aren't filled. In fact, the outfield where you have Soto, who's a generational player, and then you have everybody else fighting for playing time, knowing they got to run through a brick wall. Maybe, just maybe, that's better than just giving three outfielders a position and saying, you run out to left field, you run out to center field, you run out to right field every day, and you're guaranteed to play in 140 games. Maybe a Jose Siri is going to up his game, knowing he has to fight for playing time. Tyrone Taylor, Jesse Winker, Jurickson Profar. Maybe that's the thing. If I put him in our New York Mets system, Jurickson Profar will succeed and will look like more of the 2024 version of Profar, because this is what worked for Profar. This is what worked and motivates these successful guys. So, at the end of the day, I got to say, I'm going to trust in Stearns until he lets me down. And when he doesn't get a free agent that has the ability to sign elsewhere and he doesn't sign him, I mean, that's not letting me down. There's no control. There's no control. You're not going to realistically overpay a guy so that you could put yourself in financial stress. That is what we've done in the past, and that is where we screwed up. And for all of us who wanted to give Pete Alonso 7 years and $200 million, no other team in MLB baseball has done that. No other team in MLB in baseball is having trouble giving him 3 years and under $90 million. So for you to criticize the Mets, you better be criticizing all those other 29 teams, because nobody is doing it. And at the end of the day, there are reasons why. And again, we were at the forefront of everything. Now I hear everybody talking, well, first baseman's age at 31, 32. We spoke about that a month and a half ago. We gave you the list of all the players in the past, Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, Todd Helton, Mark Teixeira. The list goes on and on. Ryan Howard. Every single big plotting first baseman, whether they're an all-star, Hall of Famer, them signing that long-term contract has failed and has aged tremendously. Once they get to 31, 32, they have aged, and Pete has already shown that regression. But still, on a short-term contract, honestly, Pete would do a lot of help. The Mets are trying to get him back at the right asking price, and at the end of the day, we're trying to get him back at market value. You just gave Christian Walker 3 years, $60 million, $20 million a pop. He's a better defensive guy than Pete. A little older, okay. So you give Pete $23 million a year. Pete seeming to not want to accept that. $23 million is where his market value is. That's where his market value is. Matt Olson's making about $22 million. And Pete's not accepting that. He's like, I'm worth way over 500. I'm an anomaly. If you were that great, then you would have done that in the last year, when you had the best lineup that you were in quite some time, when Lindor was an MVP, when Nimmo hit almost 25 home runs, Vientos was, a really amazing player. You didn't do it. At times, you were a roadblock. At times, you were the reason why we didn't score more. You were the reason why we lost games. You were the reason why things didn't happen. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of fingers to be pointed. But again, I'm going to keep saying this, and we predict this. Everything we predicted here at Dominant Mets Nation. So if you like, I would say, just if you haven't liked the channel, like the channel, subscribe. If you watch a lot of our videos, join the channel. It really helps us out, and I do really, really do appreciate that. And if you like to consider becoming a channel member, definitely give you a shout out. That helps support the channel as well. And again, last but not least, bottom of the screen, follow on X. We are still trying to build up that channel as well. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Let me know all your thoughts. What's going on with the Dodgers? Jurickson Profar to the Mets as a possibility. Alonso Boris, that situation. Is a reunion likely? And also overall Dodger comments. Scott, let me know. Let me know what you think. Because when you think about the Dodgers, you think about the Mets, because who's most likely going to be in the way of the Mets? Got to be the Dodgers. All right, well, thank you, folks. I really appreciate it. Have a great night.